welcome to the number 4 show for the Giampaolo Cherubin Selections channel. And today it is my pleasure to introduce Paul Downs, who is a friend and also a great wine person in the Chicago market. Paul is always an amazing merchandiser and has incredible ideas. Every time I walk into his store, he is onto something. And what I admire about is the fact that, you know, in his little neighborhood place, he is always willing to take a chance and pushes the envelope on all the product that he carries. It's something that I can relate to because I feel like I've been doing that my entire life. Some days I feel like it was a success, some days I feel like I'm going backwards, but I'm glad someone else is doing that same thing. So without any further ado, I will let Paul continue. He picked all the wines for the pairing this evening. And Paul, just introduce yourself and, you know.
Well, thanks, Giampaolo. It's a pleasure to be here. Cheers.
Cheers.
Chin chin.
Chin chin.
So, the first course tonight, Giampaolo's made a buckwheat pasta with a asparagus filling, San Marzano tomato sauce, and a zucchini roll. The wine I chose is a Grillo because of the aromatic nature of it. It's a fuller-bodied white from southern Italy. It shows off stone fruit notes, and it has a touch of salinity to it, so it's going to lend itself nicely to a dish with some cheese and some creaminess too. What do you say we go to try?
I say, let's do it.
All right. So, Giampaolo, what do you think about the wine pairing that I picked?
I think it worked beautifully. I think that the salinity in the wine worked really well with the cheese because I use some of the cream of the filling. So there are 2 kinds of asparagus, white and green asparagus. And to me, you know, asparagus growing up in Italy, it's synonymous with spring because they usually come up in, especially white asparagus, April, early May. You know, it's interesting that Gewürztraminer, for example, in this country is always considered Christmas holiday wine.
Yeah.
In Europe, it's always synonymous with spring because it's usually paired with
that absolutely makes sense.
You know,
and the asparagus, things like the fresh peas that are on here, the little pops of spring flavor and the sweetness.
But the dish itself, for the fact that the pasta is made with buckwheat, so you got nuttiness in there. And the 2 asparagus were sauteed with onion and shallots and wine, and so there's much of other things that come into play, and the tomato sauce, and then the taleggio, and the peas, and I think that the wine, you know, the sort of Meyer lemon quality of the fruit and the salinity just fills in that acidity.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I think that choosing a cheese that's wash rind like Taleggio, where it's a richer, higher fat content cheese that has a little bit of funkiness, is going to work really nicely with something like asparagus.
Yeah.
So, Giampaolo, what have you prepared for us now? That first course was fantastic.
Thank you. I prepared a branzino, which they swore it was wild caught, so I hope it was. It's branzino prepared in a very ancient way of cooking, which is salt crust. Very simple principle. So the salt, basically, you leave the scales and everything on the fish. It preserves all the moisture. Okay. It cooks it from inside out. And just very simple. And then just some glazed and braised fennel bulbs, which I love. I love fennel. And then we have, again, white and green asparagus and some fresh carrots, spring carrots.
All right.
Lemon and oil and some basil in the sauce.
Well, fantastic. So the wine pairing that I chose for this dish is maybe a little bit off the beaten path. It is an unfiltered frizzante garganega. It's from the Veneto, actually from Verona. The production method is actually the same method that was used for the original Prosecco before the Charmat method was invented. So you have all of the lees, you have all this body, you have extra weight, and you've got a little bit more of a sour, kind of funky character to it that's going to cut through the richness of the fish, and it's got a slightly resinous, herbaceous character that's going to really match up with the fennel nicely.
So, anyway,
let's check it out.
Let's dig in.
Cheers, Giampaolo.
Great choice for this wine, really.
So, we went off the beaten path and kind of unconventional last time, and I decided to keep it up this time. We're doing a 2015 Old World Winery Era, which is a sherry-style red out of Russian River Valley from 100% Arbrio. The grape is also called early Burgundy. It's an early ripening varietal that originated in Burgundy, France. In this case, it is left to hang a little bit longer, slightly riper, and then produced just like you would produce a sherry. So you've got something that's a little higher octane, great acid, good fruit and depth. Kind of perfect to go with a biscotti, don't you think?
I agree. I love that sort of balsamic.
It absolutely has a balsamic
character.
Doing this wine with a fresh cherry, the tannic nature of the cherry skin actually comes out. It's kind of an interesting little experiment because all of a sudden, a cherry that's not quite perfectly ripe, not quite perfectly juicy, becomes a perfect cherry.
Yes.
Against the wine.
So we have occhiodipernice. So occhiodipernice, eye of the partridge, is a rare form of VInsanto, which very, very few producers are making anymore because it is made with Sangiovese. So rather than the traditional Trebbiano Malvasia blend that every VInsanto is made with, it's made with a red grape. So it has a whole different flavor profile. And I thought it was interesting coming from the early Burgundy grape, to this, because another red grape, but treated also as Solaya method, obviously much sweeter. You don't have the tartness that you have in there, or the sort of funkiness. But I think quite beautiful. You have this kind of like dry honeycomb.
Absolutely.
Effect with raisins and
this. The Occhiodipernice has like an elevated body compared to other Vinsantos.
Right. It's the body part that is different. Yeah, absolutely. And it definitely goes with biscotti. But these specific biscottis were made with hazelnut and almond flour. They also have hazelnuts and almonds and chocolate chips. So they are sort of a little bit heavier, biscotti kind of. So you could do this kind of
absolutely
pairing with it.
The hazelnut against this is just beautiful.
Right.
And then the fruitiness of the chocolate. I think it actually elevates the fruitiness of the chocolate.
Yeah. Well, you can say we went sweet strong with the ending of this meal. As you can see in front of us are 4 dessert wines. Only cookies, biscottis, and cherries, and 4 different dessert wines. Starting with the early Burgundy grape from California to the Occhiodipernice, so the red grape made VInsanto, to the classic VInsanto della Signora made by Fattoria Montellori. So this is a classic Monsanto in the sense that it's the original combination of Malvasia and Trebbiano. It also has a little bit of bottle aging. This is a 2013. So we were saying that it has really interesting floral and almost Asian pear notes. So it's lighter than we expected and more floral than we expected. And now, as a treat, as my friend Paul brought this interesting bottle of ice wine from Canada, so this will be our last treat. I did not expect it to be so amber, Paul, in color.
I don't think we did either, actually. So this is a Vidal ice wine from Reifestate. The Vidal grape does extremely well in colder climates, and it has a bit of an amber skin to it. But I will say that when I originally picked this up at the winery, didn't have this hue to it. So this is going to be a fun little experiment. I wanted to bring something that was a little bit personal, kind of something special that isn't available in the United States.
Isn't?
This is not. Oh. This is not distributed in the U.S. This is not exported to the United States. This is only available in Canada.
What?
And as far as I know, it's only available in Ontario. So one of the suggestions I was going to make when I was in Canada for several ice wine festivals, sometimes your food is supposed to go in your wine.
Yeah, you can.
And I think that this with the chocolate is going to be a very interesting and fun pairing, especially with that little bit of lychee that we're getting and the extra nut, the nut flour in the biscotti since it's gluten-free. Yeah, I like that.
So we're wrapping up. This was a fun evening. Thank you, Paul.
Cheers.
I really, really appreciate it.
Everything's been fantastic. Thank you.
I love what you brought and your suggestion for the wines.
Thank you.
Really great.
Had fun.
Yes, so did I. Challenged myself on making a gluten-free dinner, which was...
I think you did a fantastic job.
First time ever in doing an entire dinner gluten-free, but it was really rewarding, actually. I love challenging myself with stuff like that. So
well, you rose to the occasion.
And it was fun to also see the pairings and how it all worked. The most fun part was obviously probably the dessert part, because as you can see, 4 wines. This last ice wine was just unspeakably good. So incredible. And so anyway, what is your take on this evening? And
this has been an absolutely fantastic experience. I've really enjoyed sitting down to dinner with you and discussing these wine pairings, why they work, and what makes them so special. And I think that wine is meant to be shared, so it's fun to share it with all of you at home too.
What is your usual, do you have a philosophy about how you go to pair wine and food, or what is the criteria that you normally use? When I'm helping someone pair wine and food, I always ask them what they like to start. If you don't like it, it's not a good pairing. You don't need to follow rules. Red doesn't have to always go with meat. You don't always have to have white wine with fish. You can have 4 different dessert wines with one single little dessert course and have fun with talking about why they're amazing. I think that the wine should always be interesting and make you happy. It should be something that you want. And if you're ever unsure, if it grows together, it goes together. There's always going to be something for you to pair. I think that you just need to look more at what you want to have and worry less about what people tell you to have. I couldn't agree with you more. So, well, cheers to that. Cheers. Thank you again. Thank you, really. Absolutely. It's been a pleasure. I'm really sorry that Anitra, who is usually the life of the party, could not be with us tonight, but I just want to remind you that's usually what she does at the end of the show. It reminds you to subscribe, and put your likes or comments on our comment box. And yes. And come and see us again. And come and see us. Bye. Bye, and see you next time. Keep drinking well. Cheers. Chi-chi.